No, this is Todd's mystery show. This is her son Austin filling in for tonight. She'll be dropping in a little later. Tonight I'm going to do Visions of the Past, Part 2, Past, Present, and Future. For the viewers who haven't seen the first video, we'll link that down in the description below. For those of you who saw it a while back and forgot about it and need a refresher on it, it's also in the description. Also, going forward, we'll also be doing featuring viewer stories that they write in the beginning of each episode. So I've linked in an email down in the description below that you can send your stories to. If you wish to remain anonymous, just say so in the emails you send with the story, or tell us. If you wish to use your name, that's fine too. You can. So that's that. So, as some of you may recall, last time, about a month or so ago, I did a show called Visions of the Past, where I discussed how I believe that the old world order had been toppled by World War I, and it had left a new world order in its place. So tonight, I'll be elaborating further on the history of the new world order from the interwar years, the World War II years, the Cold War years, and then the post-Cold War years that we're in now, and where I believe it all may be heading, including the Great Awakening that I believe is coming. So, alright. So, after World War I, it left this huge power vacuum in Europe. And between the years of 1918 and 1933, it was during this time that the only major dictatorship at that time that had arisen between the years of 1918 and 1933 that had arisen from World War I, or the principal fruit of World War I, was the Russian Revolution, which left us with communism in Russia. So at that time, it seems that the powers that be, whoever they may be, they were going to have perhaps the communists start to expand from Russia throughout the world. But of course, throughout the 20s and then in the very early 30s, with the rise of Francisco Franco in Spain, of course, Mussolini in Italy, the father of fascism, who came to power before anybody, the rise of fascism in Portugal, and then finally the rise of Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany, that was countered. And then of course, Hitler created the Axis powers with the, capitalizing on the rise of nationalism through the Imperial Japanese Empire, which leads us up to 1939, which was the beginning of World War II. Now, it appears that World War II was the fascists, the communists, and then, of course, the capitalists in America duking it out over who was to control this new world order. And obviously the communists and the capitalists won out, long story short. And then since the end of the World War II era, the communists and capitalists have more or less waged a Cold War between each other, where they have kind of vied. They've kind of vied in more of a silent and Cold War with occasional proxy wars and hotspots throughout the world for control of this new world order. And of course, communism has expanded steadily. You know, you had the rise of communism in China in 1949, and then the rise of it in North Korea going into the 50s, and then in Cambodia and Laos, and it also spread throughout Latin America. But then in 1989, communism in the Soviet Union, which I think they originally intended for the Soviet Union to perhaps control the world, but eventually communism failed there. Eventually that collapsed, and it left more or less the United States led and our Western allies in control of the New World Order from 1989 onwards. But at that same time, and throughout the 90s and going into the early to mid 2000s up to where we're at now, China grew in power in place of the Soviet Union. So it appears now that the powers that be ultimately want China to be perhaps the seat of the New World Order. It's hard to say, but that appears to be what they want. And of course, China, you know, they're like an octopus. They got their pincers out, you know, all over the world, and they've infiltrated many governments, along with other organizations like the World Economic Forum and even the UN, and the last few years the World Health Organization's been one. So the war has gotten more silent. If you ask me, the Cold War, it's inaccurate to say that it really, we say we've been in the post-Cold War era since 1989, but that's not completely true when you consider that China and you know, satellite states to China like North Korea and Vietnam being two examples kind of remained, and communism continues to spread silently throughout the world. I don't really think the Cold War, it's totally accurate to really say it ever ended. I only say the post-Cold War years because that's what historians generally consider us to be in now. Of course, you know, with Russia coming back up in power again, especially, you know, expanding their influence into the Middle East through being involved in the Syrian civil war, the air corridor they established over Iraq and Iran, of course, annexing or invading Georgia, annexing Crimea, and now Ukraine. It could be said that we're kind of unofficially in the Cold War 2 years. So this is where perhaps, you know, the communists are going to make another big stand to try and regain complete control over the New World Order. And of course, anyone who's paid attention, especially the last 4 years, it's sadly obvious that America and our allies are not really in very good shape to really counter it at this point in time. We've kind of lost ourselves from what it appears. But at the same time, it's not necessarily all bad news, because it seems to me like there's also kind of a great awakening roiling under the surface. I mean, it's becoming, people are talking more and more about the paranormal and the supernatural and conspiracy theories, which we talk a lot about and here on the Wonderful World of Weirdness. That's becoming more into play, and people are talking more and people appear to be waking up to a lot more of what's going on. So I believe at some point, all of the powers that be playing us against each other for these wars they profit off of to vie for control over the new world order and to ultimately implement it to what they really want it to be, which would be a global totalitarian dictatorship. I think ultimately it's going to fail, but it is very fearful of what may happen in the meantime if enough of the global population doesn't awaken. I think on a spiritual level. So I think that's where this is ultimately going. Where more people are realizing this isn't just a battle between Russian and American and Chinese war machines and diplomats and things of that nature. It's also a spiritual battle we're engaged in. More people are realizing that we are spiritual beings in physical bodies, and at some point it's going to start to click with more people how that understanding can defeat the current world of darkness we're in right now. And the Bible even says it best when it talks about we struggle not with the flesh, but we struggle with the rulers and principalities in the celestial realms of darkness, which oversee the current darkness that our world has been in. So, as dark as it seemed, at least for the last 110 years since, or 107 years since the end of World War I, as many ups and downs as there's been, these might be the hours before the eternal dawn, during which humanity wakes up to the eternal day of one consciousness. So what do you think about that, Roger?
Well, with me, like
You there?
yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hold on. Let me. Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I'm sitting there having a conversation. Didn't even realize I was muted.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
I knew you muted yourself for a few minutes, but
But yeah, the I mean, we've actually had this conversation before, and like when we were talking about it, I think the one thing that gets left out is like the difference between communism and socialism too, because a lot of people are hoodwinked today because they don't really understand that like communism isn't where it began. Socialism started actually here in the United States and also in Germany and France. When you look at the first international and the second international, you see where it went from the second international to the third international, which was the communists. And
yeah,
the difference between socialism and vulgar communism is that freaking the communists wanted to go into action and they thought violence was a way of doing it. It was the same outcome they wanted, but they believed that violence was the way to frickin' achieve that outcome. And socialism believes that frickin' they want that outcome, but they want to do it in a peaceful, a passive aggressive manner, you know. And
yeah.
you're starting to chop up. But I believe like if you take time to do like the research into what socialism really is, you'll start realizing that fascism, communism, socialism, or all of these isms are the same thing. And my biggest thing, that I say today is our biggest problem is socialism, and you can't separate fascism from freaking communism and social, because it's all socialism. You know what I mean? It's a form of national socialists. You know what I mean? Come on, dude. You know what I mean? Come on. That's exactly the same exact thing. It's just a different brand. It's a different make. The Nazis were freaking national socialists. Okay, and like today they want you to believe that freaking we lost him, but I'll continue until he gets back on. But today they want you to believe that freaking they're two separate entities and they're not the same. Like, oh, don't include the Nazis in with socialist groups when in fact they are, And then they want to go even further and say that they were far right when in reality they were a far left group, which a lot of people still don't want to admit to this day, So I might have to repeat all that stuff to you again because.
Yeah, you were in the middle of explaining it and then just went silent.
Yeah, I know. I seen your face just freeze up right there. But the good news is the good news is everybody else heard it, so don't worry about it. You just keep on going.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know where you were at with it. So yeah, you were.
It's
Yeah, I mean the only.
It's the same spill as what was before. I just kind of went back over what I'd brought up in the first time we talked about it. Like the big thing that
Oh, okay.
like people have been hoodwinked. You know what I mean? Like they believe, like, first of all, the Nazis were freaking National Socialists, and they don't want to believe that. They want to believe that they were just fascists, and that was a far right thing. Well, that's not the truth. They were actually far left.
Oh yeah, a lot of.
Yeah,
that's what I was just getting ready to say. A lot of people mistakenly believe that because the Nazis were more racist than their ideology, how that makes them, and because they had all these big industries working under, they were somehow more right, but not really. They were left.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like the Soviet style communism, for example. Business was done by a central government bureaucracy as opposed to corporations where not like Nazi Germany. So there were some differences, but at the end of the day, they're both totalitarian ideologies, and they're both slightly different variations, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this thing's starting to get choppy on us. It kind of made sense what you were saying there, but like the totalitarianism, okay, that's what really throws people off. He'll be on in a second, guys, because they start hearing those kind of terminology, and words actually do have power, and I've said this all along, but words do have power. And how a person uses words is a big deal, So, hold on, it's getting kind of crazy. Freaking, Austin's face is frozen at the moment, so give him a second.
So, is started or?
Yeah, his phone's freezing up on him, so. But.
Really? Did you guys started though?
Yeah, we've been working.
Good.
like he's actually got his picture up right there if you notice it, but it's frozen.
It's going around in a circle, yeah.
It's pretty. He's coming back.
Hold on.
Yeah, we're getting him back
I'm
on there.
not take over. He can just keep on going. I'll just step in and just listen. and
We just have to get him to where it stops freezing up on him. I think he got
It says-
close.
huh?
I think he got too close to that.
Hold on, I'm getting back. Yeah, when I first started the show, I guess my audio was just total shit. So I went and turned off my amp, and I think it's been better. But I mean, I've left my amp on down here before, and it's been fine. Because sometimes before I'll do these shows, I'll go down and practice guitar for a little while, and I'll see my amp sit there or whatever. But
yeah,
but yeah, so you can hear.
I can hear you now, but it's just a matter of bouncing in and out. Like
Yeah, it's kind of echoing.
now when you
okay.
when you were talking about that totalitarianism, that's the thing that I wanted to comment on when you went off the air. But that's the kind of example I'm talking about, and I've always said it before how words are important, and words do have power. Okay, people are manipulated.
Absolutely, yes.
They're manipulated by words like that, like totalitarianism, okay? And they don't realize that it's all in the same group. You know what I mean? Because they hear these big words and they think, oh, that's not the same as this. But in reality, it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's a different, slightly different variation takes on the same
He gets
mechanical
Is he echoing?
ideology.
that's what happens. It's like I think he starts moving the phone or something, and it starts jiggling and making robot sounds.
I don't know.
I'm blocking out your head.
Wow, really bouncing, isn't he?
Yeah.
I've never heard him.
It's done it.
You guys want me to move?
No, you. Well, yeah, actually, that might work. Just like get up and walk around or something and find out what's going on there. Because like your video doesn't seem.
What about now?
There you go. That was that. No, see.
Okay.
Back a little bit more.
Hear me good? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, that's me.
You're still real echoey, real tin.
He's.
Let me unplug my cell phone charger. What about now?
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
That's what.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that cell phone charger's doing something, but I've left that plugged into my phone for instance that normally caused a big to-do. But
It's working.
If
it's working.
Yeah, just sit still, and like when we have these cool conversations like this, don't get excited, okay? You just sit still and you talk without getting excited, because we want to hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard not to get excited when we're having these interesting conversations, but I guess I need to curb my enthusiasm.
There you go.
About the stories and how we did that, or did you tell him about that?
We're actually.
Yeah, I gave him the link to your email to put in the descriptions for our viewers so they can send in.
We're gonna set that. I'm gonna set that into this one at the end of it, and I've got the copy of the link. And he also had the previous episode that he wants to put in this link too. Then I'll set it in there too. But
Maybe we should put when they as a subject, because it's all going to go to my junk mail. So if I look for subject like maybe, what mystery show or just ghost story or something, they need to put in a title. Maybe I didn't think of that. You know.
I mean, me personally, if it was me and I was doing something like that, I'd just set up an email all by itself for yourself on your show.
By itself, I mean, there's a few bills that come in there or something, but I think it's it will work. But yeah, I'll see how it goes, and if I want them to put something in the subject, I can tell them.
Yeah.
Now you just have them.
Huh?
Maybe just have them write in the subject story, something like that. So you know who it is sending you the email.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll see if I'm having trouble trying to distinct whether they're just story or something. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, if they,
That can work too, just as long as you know
yeah, but I'll see how it works. But
which emails are.
the other murder we forgot to talk about in Oxford. You know, when we were, oh, he went away. Where did he go away again? Where'd he go?
I think he's still there. He just like it bounces in and out. Like,
So did he tell you we were going to tell
I'm
you?
still here.
oh yeah,
tell
he's
you.
still there. And yeah, I told her I think you're still there. It's just kind of like your stuff freezes up and then comes back.
I was going to tell you the other. Talking about there was a murder I forgot all about after we got off there. About a woman that was a professor at Miami University, had a rental house in Hamilton. And she was fixing it up with another professor. Her and this other professor had bought some homes in Hamilton and fixing them up. And she had this lady that was doing some stuff for her, and the lady was unstable. So the woman that was fixing them up, I think her name was Corbett. I forget her name, her last name, or her first name.
Sherry Lynn.
Corbett, yeah. So she came to the house about 2:30, and the other lady that was fixing up the houses and helping her do some custodial work, I guess, was there. And I guess, I don't know if there was an altercation or there was an argument, but Sherry was walking out to her car, and the lady came out and shot her and killed her in broad daylight, like at 2:30 in the afternoon. And then she said she was going after the other professor who worked in marketing around, not marketing, he worked in, but in the same building as me. But she said she was going to go kill him too. And, of course, police got her, and she was deemed insane. But now I think that lady's out. So, it's just really weird. Like we were talking about Oxford and Hamilton.
It's it's part of the current darkness that you talking, Roger?
Yeah, no,
Oh, okay.
I'm chuckling kind of. I know it's a murder and everything, but like just like you were saying, dude, it's just it like that's I'm kind of expecting it when you talk about Oxford, to be honest.
Well, and I forgot all about it. And just after we had gotten off, I think it was about an hour later, I was like, dang, I forgot all about that. And what was really, when I first started working in marketing, there was a book that one of the professors wanted me to make some copies from. And I think she was in economics or something, but I don't know why he had this book. But so I took the book to make copies. In the front of the book, it was Sherry Corbett's book. And I was like, that's so creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the current darkness that hangs over the world.
And
Evil people like her.
Hangs over Oxford is what that
it's
is.
got to be Hamilton too, though, because that lady and the other guy, they had the rental properties in Hamilton, but they were both professors in Oxford. But Sherry was really sweet. Everybody said. I didn't know her, but yeah, and she was really getting into having these rental houses and these old homes, and she loved that Victorian stuff. And yeah, it was really sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's the curse of Southwest Ohio. That's something I need to do some more research into. I mean, I found about the.
They were both out of Miami University.
Yeah, I mean, I found out about the big Indian removal. I sent Roger an article about that a little while back, but I haven't pinpointed any Indian folklore or anything that points like directly to a curse of the Oxford Hamilton area as of yet. So that's something I need to do.
Indians, maybe something else. What were you guys talking about? You do the topic on the show, so I didn't want to take it.
Oh yeah. Well, that it kind of ties into the darkness hanging over the whole world. That's you're talking about darkness hanging over Southwest Ohio, and I'm talking about the darkness hanging over the entire human race, that
Yeah,
and the spiritual
don't they?
slumber that we're in, and I'm hoping we're going to awaken from it soon.
It's like we're all like Walking Dead or something.
Well, no, The
Yeah.
Walking Dead. The Walking Dead has its own part in the Bible. You got to understand that. Like when you watch like The Walking Dead on the TV show, I'll give you a little reality check here. That's actually what the Bible says is going to happen.
Really? I don't.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
seriously. Zombies. I mean, dead people will rise from the graves. I mean, that's what the frickin' Book of Revelations specifically says is gonna happen, and
Wow.
they won't be able to frickin' die. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
according to them, they're not gonna be able to die for a certain amount of time. So, the whole shooting the brain out thing, that's not gonna work. That's just something Hollywood put in to make it cool.
So you think that's part of why we're hearing like so much? The whole zombie apocalypse thing has entered a lot more prominently into popular culture the last few years.
Well,
It's because we're getting towards the time where something like that is about to unfold.
I think the mystery on the zombie thing goes even further because, like, zombies go farther back than Christianity and Judaism. Like, Ishtar, okay, with the Epic of Gilgamesh. When Gilgamesh refused him, she demanded that Anana, or no, what was it? Let her use the bull in order to frickin' kill Gilgamesh. And if he didn't allow her to use that bull, which killed Enkidu, but if he didn't allow her to use that bull, then frickin' she swore that she would raise the dead from the ground and they would devour the flesh of every human. And that's
So there's kind of been the prophecy of zombie apocalypse, or the looming threat of it hanging in everybody's minds for many thousands of years, even before Jesus and his disciples, walked the earth.
yeah. And the apocalypse in the Book of Revelations actually comes from a different sect of Christians, which a lot of the traditional Christians weren't really big on the apocalyptic books, and there were different apocalyptic books that were brought out during the time period, but that was the one that was accepted into the canon. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Now, where did the Council of Nicaea and the removal of certain books from the Bible play into that? Was that part of that too? Does that shape biblical prophecy today?
That was when the canon was actually brought together.
Okay.
The book.
So it does tie directly into it.
They gathered all of the scholarly religious folk.
Because all the Christians, they couldn't really agree on how to approach Jesus and his teachings. So that was the Council of Nicaea. They came in, they agreed to cut certain books and teachings from Christ out of it, which I mean, fortunately, the Gnostic Gospels survive today, so we can study them to have a more complete understanding of biblical prophecy. Seeing as a lot of things appear to be going by the book, so to speak, we have a more complete understanding because those survived. But for thousands of years, a lot of that was kind of cut out, and a lot of people weren't aware of the Gnostic Gospels until more recently.
And see, that kind of goes into, well, go in a little further. They weren't just cutting parts of the book out; they were cutting parts of people's freaking body parts off in their heads.
Ooh.
Like, people were being killed because they didn't believe the same exact way as these canons. So, and that kind of that kind of goes into what we're talking about here too, like the darkness that looms, you know. So at some point,
Yeah.
Christianity went from being a peaceful group of people who believed in Christ to becoming this entity that ran around killing and murdering not only its own kind but pagans and other people who didn't believe the same as them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah, because you went in ancient Rome, you went from where you could get killed because you were a Christian to being able to get killed because you were a Christian or because you were not a Christian too. So
yeah,
if you didn't think like the canons did from the Council of Nicaea, you were pretty much fucked, you know.
right. And then,
Religion
So
and
th-
yeah.
and
So
then
that's what you guys were basically talking about, was that?
No, we were talking about socialism and stuff, and communism, and
yeah, I was talking about.
the New World Order.
Yeah, we were talking about the New World Order in the current day, but then then you started talking about we touched on the curse of Butler County when you dropped in for a minute, and then I tied it back into the general curse of humanity that ties into this whole sub
story too that I forgot, and I don't know why it's not coming back to me. There was something else that happened. I
She's
was going to
such a
discuss.
troublemaker. She is
I know.
such a troublemaker.
I mean, but you tell my memory's good about stuff like that.
You
know, I forget
realize
stuff.
how hard it's going to be to name this episode?
You can. I named it in the beginning, but we might have to change the name again.
Yeah. The troublemaker.
The troublemaker. Yeah. Or
It was
in the
another
darkness.
and it was in Oxford,
Yeah.
I think. I can't remember it. Why am I drawing a blank on this? It's so weird.
The darkness
but
that looms. That's it.
Yeah. You could call it that.
The
I mean, because
darkness.
we've talked about that kind of.
What?
The darkness that looms.
I mean, we talked about the custodial worker I worked with and his son killing himself. We did that, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
There was another man, but it's a small town, and I guess, but still, there was another man. They said was, they thought he was molesting his daughter, and I did not know this man, but when I worked in the dining halls, everybody was talking about it, and they said, well, he's going to trial. He's going to go to trial next week or something. And then somebody came in and said that he hung himself.
Yeah, you said that.
And I was
one.
like,
I
oh my
remember
God.
that. That was when I was talking about. Oh, actually, we got in a conversation about suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Oh, I know what it was, Austin. Remember the lady that lived next door to your aunt? Remember that? Like, not right next door. I think it was one house down. There was, she was in a barn somewhere and she killed herself. She hung herself.
Yeah.
And then her husband, a few weeks later, went into the garage and, he turned on the car and he had all these Post-it notes on him about like how he was sorry and stuff. So they think he killed her actually.
Yeah, he murdered her and then he felt guilty about it, so he killed himself a few weeks later.
Yeah, and that was in Dartown, which is a town between Hamilton and Oxford. And I think the lady worked at Miami University. I think she actually did, or maybe Walmart or something up there. But that was what I was going to say. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I had forgotten all about that, but yeah, that was pretty big when it happened. And see that's the darkness that looms. That's
But we seem to have a lot of crazy crimes like right around that between Oxford and Hamilton, and even the Dartown. I mean, that's a little town between the two of them.
Now is it quite that crazy? Is it that crazy out in southern Illinois where you live, Roger, or is this above average?
We we get strange ones, but they only happen like once every 10, 20 years. Like, and
I know. It's like
you
it's
guys,
crazy.
you guys are like living in a bad neighborhood, but it's an entire state or some shit. Like they just they took over your region, and it's time to get the hell out. To be honest, like,
The,
start packing your shit.
the
and
demons
go.
from hell, they just
I
they came
mean,
up out of the
seriously.
ground.
With the amount
Well,
of murders, with the amount of murders that you've listed off, man, this should be like Chicago.
and they're all and they're all like different types. They're not just like domestic violence things.
Uh-huh.
They're mixed in with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of like a domestic violence thing because they said that like he was very controlling of her, and she was carrying a gun, and then she ends up dead in this barn outside of Oxford.
Well, see, like here we do get like murders. Don't get me wrong. Like people
Yeah.
do get shot, and people do, but they're freaking normal murders. Like we had one where
Yeah, we have weird ones here.
I mean,
Yeah.
we had one where a kid was in high school and he was shot because like the new freaking gang things starting up in this area, which has happened within the last 20 years, you know. But
Right.
stuff like that happens, and that's because of Carbondale. But
Right.
but like you guys, I mean, you got some weird shit going on over there. I mean, that's
Yeah, and there's always some weird circumstances, like the girl that was murdered at the level 23 apartments or something. That was strange too. I mean, there's just always weird stuff.
That's why I'm trying to find like some folklore that points to like a kind of a curse on this area of some sort. That's why I'm doing the digging for it. But
Even where we live now, Austin, in Middletown, you know, there's some rough areas up here.
oh yeah,
You see shootings. We hear about shootings, and you know it's drug related and stuff, but you don't hear about this odd stuff that's happening like in Oxford and Hamilton, between Oxford and Hamilton. Or most people have a tie to Oxford, though.
I think the Oxford Hamilton area is cursed. It's
it's creepy.
because it's not just normal stuff. It's it comes back to the darkness that looms.
well,
Right.
like what we were starting out earlier in, okay, like with Germany, all right. You can't tell me that Germany is not a cursed region. Like there's something about Germany that is cursed. Actually, you can even stretch it all the way into Russia. That whole region from 'cause,
Yeah.
like Prussia and Russia, because that's what Germany really is Prussia. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, mainly Prussia, and it could be very very easily debated that Russia is cursed if you look at their history. They never really seem to get out of the hole they're in. It's just like
Or they're vicious. They're
People are
Yeah.
like
they're what?
you heard how they killed their last czar, don't you?
Yeah.
Once you-
Oh yeah, they rounded him and his family up and mowed them down
Yeah.
when they were in exile. Then they dumped their bodies up in Siberia somewhere or some shit.
Wow.
So it was that was the Bolsheviks that did that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it seems like Russia and Germany in particular, those two areas are particularly cursed, but it's it's kind of like the Oxford Hamilton area on steroids. Like,
Oxford, for a small town, has had quite a few things.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Now this,
And those things may tie in with like and those, in the case of Germany and Russia, for example, they tie in with major historical events, as we can see.
Yeah.
And in the Oxford Hamilton area, it appears to be the same thing, but I haven't found anything directly pointing to a curse, but it appears to be something of that nature.
Yeah, because we've had some really big crimes like that Ron Taman. That's an unsolved mystery from what, 50 years ago. I mean, that's been forever. That's a big thing. Never have.
I think the CIA got him into the whole the whole MK Ultra thing, which that comes back to the because the government was trying to use that as a serum by which to control minds and manipulate the masses. So that does tie back very big into the New World Order kind of thing, and when you talk about, the MK Ultra thing, like we did a few episodes back on that, they're trying to find ways to manipulate the masses. That was just another angle they were going at, and he either was a willing participant of it or maybe fell victim to it without realizing, and who knows where Ron Taman may have ultimately wound up. It's impossible to say,
New World Order is like, I think our media plays this against each other so that we'll all be fighting so we can't figure out what's going on, and we're being manipulated, all of us.
Well,
when we really, even if you're different political parties and stuff, most of us want the same things. We can come together on issues even if we have differences. Most of us just want to make a decent living and be able to not be taxed to death and just exist and have some peace and not work to death. It's just pretty simple.
Yeah.
But they have
and they're always.
And did you notice how Trump is like, they've kept him so relevant? It's like he's never ever stopped being president. I always feel he's still.
It's all. A lot of it's just a lot of it's theater.
But they talk about him when Biden first got elected. It was like every time I was on listening, and they still do it. It's like, well, Trump thinks this, but Trump's not the president anymore. So I told you, my boyfriend, I was like, why are they acting like Trump's always the president now? Who cares what he thinks about the immigration or anything? He's not the president anyway.
The president. It's part of the plot to keep everybody fighting. I think a lot of it. That's the. Oh, here comes Roger. Are you there, Roger?
Did he walk out?
Yeah, he walked. I think he stepped out for a second. I heard his door.
Yeah, I had to do the restroom. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was hoping that Mike getting muted might stop that sound from happening, but it apparently didn't. So.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
On my computer, I muted it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
John told me, I hope he doesn't mind, that he was at a service and that he saw a little boy next to a lady and like a spirit. He said something to her and she said it was her son that she had lost a while ago, and then he comes to visit her sometimes. Isn't that spooky? I guess John can see stuff like that. I can't. I've never really seen an actual ghost. I've seen, like I said, the top.
Now, he says that he's only seen one spirit. Now, a lot of the things that he sees is he says they're visions, but they're not like he doesn't like see them all the time, like out in the middle of the room or some stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's what he was saying about this one. It was so odd. It was so vivid. I think it just recently happened around Easter. So he was saying it kind of scared him because he's never seen one quite so clearly. Mm-hmm. So this was pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be kind of creepy.
Oh.
Is everybody blipping out?
We seem to have lost a member of the committee.
But anyway, that was my little thing. I talked to John for a minute, and he had said, and it was kind of creepy. Yeah.
No, like with
Hold on. It kind of skipped out on me again there for a second.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll work out though, because when you sign back in, maybe it did something good with your audio and video and stuff. So hopefully.
Can you hear me good now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Real good.
Oh, okay. I mean, And that's one thing I wanted to touch on too. That's actually a good thing you were telling that story about John, because I remember him mentioning something. I think it was in the last interview he did with Russia Waves. He touched on the Great Awakening, and that's something I was wanting to touch on in this too. And this community, with me, you, Roger, and John, and other people we talk to, this may be kind of the beginning of it, because it's kind of weird how we've suddenly came together seemingly out of nowhere and started talking about all this stuff.
Right.
It's kind of like and there could be a lot of other little communities out there on the internet very similar to this one, where people are talking about things like this, and then maybe over time they could start linking up into something much larger, and that could be the beginning of the Great Awakening, where we start talking about paranormal and supernatural stuff and us being one level of consciousness, things we have in common that aren't so divisive, like politics and things like that. That could be that. I really wonder if John isn't perhaps, altering the course of human history in a way that he doesn't yet realize. Maybe that's the reason God put him on this earth. I've really kind of thought that a lot lately. The more
be careful with that, because you don't want to get John's head too big. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like keep him
Does
humble.
does he have a problem with getting arrogant and egotistical?
I didn't say that. I was like, you don't want to take the chance though. Keep him humble. Keep him humble.
But I think there's some people in Middletown too that, like I said, I heard those guys talking about something weird like aliens or something over at Starbucks. So there's a community there. There's some people that are,
And then that ties into this community, so it's like the beads of Mercury coming together slowly into an ocean of light, which could be the Great Awakening.
You want to bring up Mercury, so we're going to have to talk about the Amish and when the Mennonites broke away from the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Now,
to talk about clips.
now they actually have a strange freaking origin story, like when their religious sect started. A lot of people.
You talking about the Amish?
No, the Mennonites.
Oh, okay.
The ones that were, well, I guess they would be before the the Amish, the ones that came out of Germany and stuff.
Now, my grandfather on mom's side, he was born Amish, and then my great grandfather left the Amish sect when he was like maybe 2 years old back in 1917. So I'm actually descended directly from the Amish, but I don't know a whole lot about them because obviously I was never part of it. But
they were an apocalyptic group. The reason why they broke away from the English was because they believed the end of the world was coming, and they started believing those thoughts because freaking of Saturn. And there's supposed to have been an eclipse where all the planets came into freaking alignment, and this created a hysteria, I guess, among some of the Christians, and that's where the Amish belief started coming up from. It's really, really weird. I just started checking it out on the internet.
because you
Talking about this most recent eclipse is something weird too. There's been a lot of astronomical stuff happening in the last 6 months or something, hasn't there? People talking about that. Yeah.
Now that's actually weird too, because the other day I was watching on the news, and apparently there's a huge following of people who are following the eclipses, and they're talking about millions of people traveling from one country to another just to follow eclipses as they happen.
And see, that could play a part in the Great Awakening too, because people that normally wouldn't have came together and been aware of each other's existence will come together around something like that. And then, of course, there was also that big earthquake in New York just the other day, which I don't think New York usually even has earthquakes. That's more of like a California thing. So there's that's
weird.
kind of that's kind of bizarre too, because you almost never. And it was a big earthquake. It wasn't just like a tremor or an aftershock from something somewhere else in the world. It was pretty big.
But you know what's weird? Just a couple weeks ago, we had an eclipse with the moon. They didn't even say nothing about it. I saw it when I was coming in from a walk, and it was beautiful. And I was like, well, I didn't know there was this eclipse on the moon. And then so I asked Alexa, I think, because I was like, and she's like, yeah, this is a solar eclipse, lunar. But I hadn't heard nothing about that one. You know, people weren't like buckets and all kinds of stuff.
No, that's the one I was just talking about, where the news was talking about it. They're not only that, but they're having freaking areas are having to freaking prepare for these tourists coming into the area just so they can freaking watch this eclipse.
That's crazy. You know, they're turning it into a big, crazy bunch of stuff, and it might even be cloudy in most places. And
well, think about it though. You got over 1 million people doing this. Okay, they're following astrological signs.
Right.
Okay, no, that I'm talking like if you want to go on a spiritual level here and think about it like that. Okay, I believe a lot of people are returning back to paganism and they don't even realize it.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, it's strange when I heard that. I was thinking that is a lot of people. That's like a cult, a following.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Wherever it's going to be, there along the trail. Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy people are booking hotels and. Mm-hmm.
I know.
Yeah, it is kind of strange how it's the hysteria surrounding it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big deal with these eclipses, you know? And like blood moons, nobody even gives a crap about the blood moons. There were supposed to be 4 of them that were supposed to happen. I think it was within the last. Well, it was supposed to happen like 2 years ago, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And
look at the meteorites too. Like this year, there's been a lot of them, and like towards the end of last year, like I saw that green shooting star, and then I think I was talking to somebody, and they said, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of meteorites and weird things going on with the atmosphere and stars." So, but nobody said nothing about that. Yeah. So
how do you think all these astronomical events, do you think they perhaps tie in to a great awakening or spiritually or something of that nature?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, for me, I think having a spiritual awakening for me is like a personal experience. First of all, I mean, like this great awakening that everybody has, it's going to have to happen on a personal level, and eventually, when more and more people have it happening to them, they're going to realize that they probably didn't want that spiritual awakening because they've been lifted out of a fog. Okay, and this fog is like
right.
them living in their delusional world that this is the way it should be, and they're going to find out that this isn't the way it should be. It should be this way, and I don't think like there's going to be like this great mental awakening that's going to happen to a crap load of people at the same time. I just don't really. I believe that eventually it's going to just grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You think it might be more of a gradual thing, kind of like how I was describing, like this little community become growing and then maybe linking up with other. So it might be a more gradual thing that takes place over a period of many years or maybe even decades, and humanity gradually shifts in its conscious understanding until before we really even completely realize it.
Right.
I read something the other day that's really weird that ties into that kind of a. It says scientists are realizing now that they can't explain everything. So,
damn, that's a miracle.
Well,
yeah, they're finally waking up to their own folly.
Yeah, and it says that they sound like gurus now. You know, that we're getting back into what it was like in the '60s, where people were doing. They were into astrology and a lot of that stuff then.
Well,
so
the ancients were just as smart as what we are today. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people have a hard time with, and it goes back to the brainwash. Okay, like everybody who doesn't really get into ancient history, they freaking think that everybody who lived 2,000, 5,000 years ago were a bunch of ignorant fools who freaking couldn't wipe their butts. Okay? But that's not the truth. They were very intelligent people who just didn't have the same tools we have today.
Yeah.
You know?
And then if we go back to that everything about aliens, you know, where me, you, and Mr. Robot are talking about the Atlanteans and Lemurians, they probably didn't have a lot of the same tools, but some of the different tools they had may have been way more advanced than anything we had today. Yeah. We might not be able to fully grasp that as we're kind of beginning to uncover with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So kind of waking up to the fact that ancient civilizations may have been just as advanced or way more so, that may be part of the Great Awakening too.
Right.
Realizing that our society, that we are indeed in some sort of fallen state right now, and then that's part of how we rise back up in consciousness, or you know, vibrations, as John would say. Now, he's talking about vibrational levels.
Right.
Humanity's in a relatively lower state. You know, a lot of Christians would say we're in a fallen state. It's kind of the different ways of saying the same things. So again, you know, the different belief systems kind of coming together and us realizing that there's different ways of saying the same things, that could be the beginnings of this awakening. So it's kind of like embers right now, and then the embers will grow into a fire, and then a roaring flame, and then
it's the way it always happens too.
Yeah, I think it is gradually beginning, because people all over the world are slowly starting
now
to realize that.
If you ask me, we're not at the beginning. We're kind of like at the lower part of the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are becoming more aware. Don't get me wrong. It's not like a beginning. It's kind of gone into middle range, but at the lower end of that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
People are starting to wake up, and the reason why they're waking up is because they're looking around. They're saying, you know what, something's not right. And we've never...
And I think, well, when COVID happened, all that stuff got weird anyway. Everything, I think it's a lot of odd things can happen quickly. I mean, now that happened overnight. Yeah.
And something's been off since March of 2020, especially. I noticed a big shift in the feel of the world that I wasn't living with prior to that. But it's hard to put my finger on exactly what it is, you know. And that kind of ties into the discussion, you know, I started out with at the beginning of this episode. Just how there's. And I noticed the same shift after September 11th, after the great the great economic downturn of 2008. That was another one. So we've had a lot of shifts, especially since the year 2000, where things have gradually been getting darker, but at the same time, through these things, we've been waking up to more of the true nature of our being and reality. So I'm not sure exactly where do you think the exact beginning of the awakening was, or do you think it's something that's kind of been under the surface, forever, more or less?
The beginning of like all of this, to me, honestly, was when Ronald Reagan chose George Bush Sr. as his vice president. When he allowed a neocon to frickin' enter frickin' the White House, that's when things frickin' changed. Neoconservatives are frickin' different than being a conservative. They are really, really hardcore. Okay. And
Yeah. They're crazy.
Yeah, George Bush has been the senior, not junior. He has been it's been suggested that he could have been responsible for JFK's assassination. This goes all the way back to when he was in the CIA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was in the CIA then, so it's very possible.
And his father was also the one who created the CIA.
That was Prescott Bush, right?
Right. Prescott Bush was the founder of the CIA.
So,
that's where I think it began.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, that's where it kind of began to really accelerate a lot more. And then, of course, people act like him and Bill Clinton ran against each other in '92, but there's a council called the Council of Foreign Relations you have to be on to be president, and you have to have a member of the council sponsor you. Well, Bill Clinton was sponsored for membership to that council by George Bush Sr.
Yeah.
So they weren't really political foes like it appears, And I think the more people get into studying things like conspiracy theories and stuff like we're talking here, the more we find that the powers that be are playing that game with us all. They're always playing with our heads. Everything's a psychological operation,
Well, it's a social experiment, and that's kind of what I was getting at with the socialist thing, okay? And like when you hear these complex words like totalitarianism, and everything with an ism at the end of it, okay? Everybody believes that frickin' there's no way that this is related to that or that's related to this, but in reality they are. Like passive.
Yeah, they're all interrelated.
Like when you hear being passive resistant, okay, or passive aggressive, you think that those are two different things, but in reality, being resistant is still a freaking a form of aggression, okay?
Right.
So when people are protesting in a peaceful manner, they're doing it in an aggressive manner.
It's passive aggressive, right, or passive resistant.
It's still aggression. You see what I mean?
That's where they get the saying that politics is war without the bloodshed, because people are at war with each other, but they're not killing each other yet.
Right.
It's kind of like, you look at like how the American Civil War began. It began in courtrooms, and it began in with presidential debates and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this big social experiment going on, and it all rotates around socialism. All right? And all of it is socialism. The Nazis were socialists, so were the frickin' Allies, so were the Axis. They were all socialist groups.
Right.
And it was all a big twisted social experiment playing us all against each other.
Right.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and that's been going on for we're starting to find now, the more we look at our history, it's been going on for centuries. But people a long time ago didn't really think that way. They didn't really see that.
Right.
Like we're starting to awaken to it now.
Right.
But it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard for us to grasp right now, because the world is starting to look different to us all. And so it's something we don't quite we know that something's underway, but we don't really understand it yet.
Right.
And that could be the light coming up in us, illuminating things, as it were.
Right.
And then that's what counters the darkness that looms.
Right.
That's the great awakening.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the great awakening.
I can't believe that we survived this, and because it's like an hour and 16 minutes now.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, I'm gonna get
Been a
off.
minute.
No, you can't get off here yet. You caused all that trouble, and you're just gonna bail, dude.
Well, I feel
Yeah, you did. Come on, you just a couple more minutes. Let your son end the show, and then you can say bye and all.
well, Austin can end it too since he started
Well,
it.
I know, but you stick around at least whenever he does it. Come on, dude. Like, you're a troublemaker. You really are.
Yeah, you interrupted the great awakening.
Yeah.
No, I'm just messing with you.
No, you're right. She's a troublemaker. She pops in here and she's like, "Well, I want to get out of here now."
Well, we've been doing it for an hour and a half.
But you want
to? Something I've noticed with things, because I've always done the budget and stuff in my household, and now I do it, of course, by myself. But everything's so hard. Or so computers are supposed to make everything so easy. But now it's like you don't just call and have somebody come out and fix your stuff. You have to go through all these different. You call 2 or 3 people and they set you up, and then they don't show up, or they text you and they do this and they do that, just to get something fixed anymore. And it's frustrating. And it's the same with medical stuff too. Anytime you have a test or anything. Because like I had a test, a follow-up test, and then my catering calls me, and they're like, "Well, the person, your doctor's not an OBY," and I was like, "Yes, she was. Yes, she is. She's the one who ordered the test." They're like, "No, she's not. She's something else," and I was like, and they said, "You need to find out who she is." I said, "Well, why do I need to find out who she is? You're the one. I'm not working for you. I'm not working for you." And the woman's like, "Well, I don't understand why this is." And so I ended up calling my OBY's secretary and asked her. And she's like, "Yeah, that woman used to be down in Cincinnati, and she did do something else like internal medicine. But she said, yeah, now she's an OBY. She said they don't have their computer system or something up to date." So here I am. I'm acting like somebody's secretary in Kettering or something.
Yeah.
Calling up and saying, "Hey, this is my doctor." But everything is like that.
Yep.
It seems it's like working in the whole world, because it used to be, you worked at a university, you knew that it was a lot of red tape. You just knew that, and that's what it was like. But corporations and stuff weren't like that. Corporations weren't. I mean, and medical stuff wasn't. Now medical stuff's terrible, and like you have to call around and call 100 people, and you get these voice messages, and you got to go to another voice message, and you got to do this just to get to a person is crazy.
Do you think those things are like hurdles being thrown in our way, like making things more complicated than they need to be, to maybe prevent an awakening, and we don't realize that's what it is? Or have we just unwittingly made a hell for ourselves?
I think we're being herded like cattle. Like you're actually freaking being compartmentalized, like we were talking about before, and with these messages, most of them are usually automated. That means they don't want you to have human contact with the people that you're dealing with. They want you to talk to an automated message or an automated personality that's going to
Or
take
a
care of
bot. I mean, they have
Yeah.
a lot of chats, like on insurance companies have chats and bots, and so does like appliance places. Because I've been dealing with Sears, which is a nightmare. But
It's about isolating you. It's about
Mm-hmm.
isolating you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
but you can't
Yeah, I
reach
mean,
a real person. Sometimes you cannot reach a real person.
That's what
and
it's
with
about.
going, going into the events of the last 4 years, I'm not going to do it here since you're live streaming on YouTube, and I don't want to get any strikes on your channel.
Just don't say
it
chemicals
could be like,
and you're cool. Just
just
leave the
don't say chemical.
Don't say
Oh.
any kind of chemicals whatsoever.
Oh, okay, I wasn't going to do that, but
And you're cool.
but we could do like a real-time thing where I talk about how they used a certain event to isolate a lot of people, and it created a lot of created a lot of mental illness that may not have existed before, which may
Talking about COVID.
have held the
Yeah.
Great Awakening back, and maybe that was part of the plan
That's
because
not
they were
a,
afraid.
that's not a chemical. That's a name. She's
Yeah.
all getting on.
I remember, Mom. The powers that be are watching, so
It's
you
fine.
can't get strikes on on
You,
Roger's channel.
you can say COVID, but just don't like say the chemicals and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but I think that was kind of part of isolating people too, and that was, and that ties into how technology can be misused to isolate. Like we here right now, we're using technology in a proper way to
Yeah.
communicate with each other and to get to know other people that we may not have otherwise met who enrich our lives. And that's so it's a good thing if we use it properly, but people using it to isolate others as part of that twisted social experiment to keep us in spiritual darkness. That's where they're the ones trying to hold back the Great Awakening. But I don't think they're ultimately going to succeed, because right now it's slowly growing. And John, the community he started here, and that Roger helps him, keep going now.
Right.
That hopefully it grows into other communities like it, because I'm sure there's other communities like this going on around us
Yeah.
that may start growing into ours, and that we could be kind of at the like Roger was saying, in the beginning of the middle of
Yeah.
the Great Awakening.
Now,
And being part of this community, like
with what you're saying too, I want to also remind you of something, and everybody knows this. Okay, it's always used all the time for a reference. But what happens when you freaking make a water balloon and you don't turn the water off?
Yeah.
it blows up.
It pops.
Right.
Right. And that's what's happening. Okay. Eventually, that balloon's gonna pop. The balloon
Yep.
is all this stuff that these people are doing, and the water is us. Eventually, it's just going to keep building up, and then it's going to pop.
Mm.
You see?
It's kind of like a dam breaking.
Right.
I think that's what's going on now. We're trying to ease spiritually, or all the spiritual energy, but it's building up. So we're going to keep awakening and going higher and higher conscious wise. And doesn't the book of Revelations talk about towards the end of time, like God would gather his people? I mean, is that what's perhaps going on here with this community? It's the beginning of the great gathering.
Well, you
Maybe.
gotta kind of be careful with that, because then, like, when you talk about the rapture and stuff, that brings a whole different group of people
Right,
together,
right.
and then you have people who are traditional on the Bible. And,
Right.
Yeah, and then you have the feuds between different Christian sects coming in, which leads back to the divisions in our in our one consciousness again.
Now,
So it's kind of like,
when the end times do come, I believe that all that's going to lead to cannibalism. Like, freaking, they're going to end up eating each other and being a food source for the other.
I guess if people are starving enough and can't get food, it could happen, because for sure, a food shortage could really create something like that.
Yeah,
Right.
I think they're going to start hunting each other down and freaking using them as a food source. Like, you're going to see a lot of the freaking people from the Church of God eating freaking Second Baptists, and then Second Baptists are going to be going after the Catholics.
I can see that.
Well, I'm gonna go. Are you guys wrapped here?
Yeah.
So yeah, but we could be at the beginning. We could be at the beginning of the beginning of the middle of the Great Awakening, which will lead us out of the darkness that looms, which we've been discussing.
We'll call this the darkness that looms before the Great Awakening.
Yeah, and that kind of still does tie in with the first video I did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, especially since okay, cool.
Now you started you started the video, so you're gonna have to end it. Me and your mom's just here to be cool and hang out and give you support.
Okay.
So.
I mean, if you want to talk, just wander off. You guys can keep talking, but it's like, if you guys still got stuff.
No, it's an hour and a half. We better.
Yeah.
We better.
Yeah, we got. I think we've broken a record for episode length here. So.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out a real cool topic for next week, like something real scary though. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, if people write in some stories, we'll have something to kind of fuel that fire, Now,
when as soon as I do the edit for this stream, it's gonna go in the description for your email, and then I'll open up a tab and get the original video and put it in there too for you.
All right.
And just so people on here who's listening and watching understands, I'm just a cameraman. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not your show. So.
That's right. It's Little Miss Troublemaker's show.
Well, if you started calling it, instead of calling it Summer Todd's Mystery Show, you started calling it Little Miss Troublemaker's Mystery Show.
Yeah. That's actually a good idea. Little Miss Troublemaker.
My vice president, so yeah.
All right. I think that caused this camera to freeze up.
Oh shoot! He was gonna get out of here. Where'd he go?
He's there. It just caused this camera to freeze up.
Are you?
All right.
All right, now.
All right.
Now you gotta say bye.
Yeah, I was getting ready to end the show, and then I froze up.
Yeah, no, it caused. Okay, so now me and you have to be quiet.
I'm not my usual troublemaker self because I'm kind of tired. I'm not supposed.
I know. Get some rest. Get some rest for next week, so you can really make some trouble. All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right. This has been the darkness that looms in the Great Awakening to come episode of Summer Todd's Mystery Show, hosted by her son Austin Todd, with her generously co-hosting tonight. Thank you all for watching. Take it easy, and God bless.